Commander Zixtar had served aboard the Eternal Wisdom for 300 solar cycles, cataloging stellar phenomena and mapping quantum fluctuations across 17 galaxies. In all that time, nothing had made her crystalline form crack. Until today. Energy surge detected in Sector 77 Alpha. Drone sensor technician Veclor, his tentacles dancing across the control interface with practiced boredom. Then his appendages froze mid-motion. Commander, the readings, they can't be correct. Zixtar flowed across the bridge, her translucent body refracting the ship's ambient lighting into prismatic patterns. Explain. I'm detecting a vessel. Primitive construction. Metal alloys. Ceramic compounds. What appears to be. Veclor paused, his three eyes blinking in sequence. Rubber. But it's moving at superluminal velocities. Check your instruments for malfunction. I did. Twice. Commander, it's not using any known FTL method. No quantum tunneling, no dimensional folding, no gravitational manipulation. It's just going fast, through normal space. The energy requirements alone shoaled. The bridge erupted in alarms as space itself seemed to hiccup. Where moments before had been empty void, a vessel materialized without warning. No wormhole exit signature. No quantum cascade. It was simply not there. And then it was. The UNS Persistence blazed past their position at speeds that made Zixtar's internal matrices scramble to compute. Its hull glowed cherry red from friction that shouldn't exist in vacuum, leaving a trail of ionized particles that sparkled like a comet's tail made of impossibility. Analysis. Zixtar commanded, feeling the first crack appear in her crystalline shoulder. Science Officer Thrixnell's feathers stood on end as his console flickered with data. The vessel appears to be. Commander, this can't be right. It's propelling itself through mechanical thrust. But the exhaust velocity would need to exceed light speed, which would require infinite energy, which would. His words cut off as he fainted, his delicate avian form crumpling to the deck. Zixtar studied the readings herself, feeling more cracked spider web across her form with each impossible number. The human ship, for the crude radio signals identified it as humanity's first interstellar vessel, was somehow maintaining structural integrity under forces that should reduce it to subatomic particles. Its crew, composed of liquid-based life forms, should be paced against the bulkheads. Yet bioscans showed them moving around normally, apparently unaware they were violating fundamental constants. Establish communication, she ordered, her voice resonating with harmonics of distress. Channel open, Commander. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Zixtar of the Galactic survey ship Eternal Wisdom. Your propulsion method appears to contradict established physics. Please explain your technology. The response came after a brief delay, the universal translator struggling with the casual tone. Hey there, Captain Jake Morrison, UNS Persistence. Not sure what you mean about physics. We're just using the Mark VI Harbinger drive. You know, standard stuff. Fusion ramjet with the Peterson modification. Duct tape and prayer, mostly. You folks having engine trouble? We've got jumper cables. As the transmission ended, Zixtar's form finally shattered into 1,000 pieces, her consciousness desperately holding the fragments together. Somewhere in the vast cosmos, reality itself had developed a blind spot shaped exactly like human stubbornness. She had to warn the Council. The humans weren't using advanced technology to break physics. They simply hadn't read the user manual. High Admiral Thekvar's military career spanned 8 millennia. He'd witnessed supernovas birth black holes, commanded fleets through dimensional rifts, and once arm-wrestled a sentient star to a draw. None of that prepared him for the footage playing on the War Council's main screen. His tentacles slammed against the obsidian table hard enough to crack its surface, sending ripples through the quantum-stabilized material. The holographic display showed the UNS Dauntless performing what humans called a bootlegger's turn in the middle of space. The vessel somehow pivoted on absolutely nothing, whipping around 180 degrees while maintaining its original velocity vector. The pilot could be seen through the transparent aluminum cockpit, one hand on what looked like a steering wheel from a terrestrial ground vehicle, the other holding what the cultural database identified as a slushy. Perhaps the humans have discovered a new form of spatial manipulation, began the Vorthan representative, her crystalline shell humming with nervous energy. They're using REACTY Pavlichi ELs and calling them spinny things, interrupted Dr. Klaxnor, the Council's chief science advisor. Look at this. He gestured wildly at another screen showing technical readouts. Their navigation computer is a smartphone duct taped to the dashboard running something called Google Maps, Galactic Edition. The Korthax representative, a being of pure energy contained in an armored shell, pulsed violent purple. They must be weaponizing ignorance. No species could accidentally break physics this thoroughly. Thekvar watched another video, this one showing a human vessel ramming through an asteroid field at full speed. The ship had no shields, no deflector arrays, no gravitic manipulation. Just a reinforced front bumper with what appeared to be a hand-painted sign reading Asteroid Pilo, Ki Vibekeke 500 meters. Post-engagement analysis, he demanded. The vessel emerged with minor paint scratches, reported the tactical analyst, his 6 eyes blinking in disbelief. The captain's log notes, and I quote, "Bit rougher than the Jersey Turnpike, but nothing the boys in maintenance can't buff out." This is impossible. The Zentari admiral's gaseous form swirled in agitation. The kinetic energy alone. They don't know it's impossible, interrupted Counselor Vexana, her ancient voice carrying the weight of eons. Look at their engineering principles. She projected a human technical manual onto the screen. Half the equations were crossed out with notes like "seems about right" and "close enough for government work." One critical calculation was replaced with a crude drawing of a thumbs up. The room fell silent except for the hum of the climate control systems and the distant screech of reality being bent somewhere in human space. Their latest ship, Klaxnor continued weakly, the Uranus Hold My Beer, just completed what they call a sick drift around a black hole's event horizon. They used the gravity well to, and I quote the pilot, "get some gnarly air." They emerged traveling faster than when they entered. Thekvar felt his auxiliary hearts begin skipping beats, a sensation he hadn't experienced since his first combat engagement. What are their weapons capabilities? The tactical display switched to combat footage. A human destroyer fired what appeared to be a magnetic railgun that was quite literally a reinforced pipe with copper wiring wrapped around it. The projectile, a simple steel ball bearing, somehow achieved 0.3 C and punched through a test asteroid like tissue paper. The power requirements, someone started, are met by connecting the gun directly to their fusion reactor with jumper cables rated for household appliances. Klaxnor finished, his voice flat with defeat. The council erupted into chaos. The Vorthan representative shattered into her component crystals from stress. The Korthax admiral's energy form flickered through the entire visible spectrum. 3 separate species representatives fainted, and one began speaking in tongues that hadn't been used since the universe was young. Thekvar slammed his primary tentacle for order. Enough. We have 2 options. Understand human technology before they accidentally collapse a star while trying to make toast, or pray to whatever cosmic forces might listen that humans never realize they're doing the impossible. What's our recommendation? Asked Counselor Vexana. Thekvar watched the screen as another human ship performed a maneuver that required negative mass to achieve. The pilot was visible, eating what appeared to be a sandwich while steering with his knee. Full mobilization. Every scientist, every engineer, every reality theorist we have. And someone find out what "hold my beer" means. It appears to be their activation phrase for breaking physics. As the council dispersed, Thekvar remained, staring at the screens. Somewhere in the cosmic distance, he could swear he heard the universe itself whimpering. Ambassador Threndel's diplomatic career had survived 12 wars, 47 ceasefire negotiations, and once talking a sentient nebula out of eating a solar system. As her ship approached Earth's solar system, she wondered if she should have updated her will. "Activating all defensive systems," announced her security chief. Hextor, his chitinous form radiating anxiety pheromones that made the bridge smell like burned ozone and fear. The humans agreed to peaceful contact, Threndel reminded him, though her own bioluminescent patches flickered nervously. The humans also claimed their ships run on good vibes and premium unleaded, Hextor retorted, charging weapons that could crack moons. The first sign of trouble came when their sensors detected the human escort fleet. 3 vessels approached at impossible velocities, then performed synchronized barrel rolls that sent Threndel's navigation officer into cardiac arrest. The ships were flying backwards. "Greetings, alien dudes." The communication channel crackled with enthusiasm. "I'm Lieutenant Brad Stevens, UNS Righteous Fury. We'll be your escort today. Just follow us." "Oh, wait, you probably can't do sick flips like this. We'll slow down." The human vessel spun around to face forward, though one continued flying sideways, because it looked cooler, according to its pilot. Their hull markings included official registry numbers alongside what appeared to be racing stripes and flame decals. "How are they maintaining formation while performing acrobatic maneuvers?" whispered Threndel's aide. "They're not using computer assistance," the sensor operator reported, mandibles clicking in distress. "They're flying by visual reference. One pilot appears to be using hand signals." As they approach Earth's orbital defense perimeter, Threndel expected to see advanced weapon platforms and shield generators. Instead, she found satellites held together with what her cultural database identified as zip ties and solar panels that appeared to be standard residential units with handwritten labels reading "This side up" and "Do not touch, Jerry's project." The diplomatic meeting was scheduled aboard Earth Station Prime. Threndel's security detail insisted on full environmental suits and personal shields. They materialized in what humans called the reception area to find Captain Sarah Chen waiting with a smile that somehow conveyed both welcome and complete disregard for physics. "Ambassador, welcome to Earth Station Prime." Chen extended her hand for what Threndel recognized as a handshake, a ritual that required physical contact between potentially hostile species. "Sorry about the mess. We're still installing the gravity plating in Section 7. Gravity plating. Threndel carefully grasped the offered hand, noting the human's grip strength fell within acceptable parameters for a non-cybernetic species. "Yeah, it's just neodymium magnets under the floor tiles. Works great until someone drops their keys." Chen led them through corridors that mixed exposed conduits with what appeared to be decorative plants growing in repurposed ammunition containers. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? We just got the replicator working. Turns out it was just a really fancy 3D printer all along." Hextor's scanner beeped frantically. "Captain Chen, our instruments show your station's hull is maintained at standard pressure, but there are multiple breaches." "Oh, those aren't breaches, just windows we haven't installed yet. The force field is basically a fan blowing really hard to keep the air in. Works better than you'd think." Threndel felt her chromatophores shifting to a color her species hadn't displayed since their primordial ancestors encountered their first predator. "Force field. Yeah, Johnson in engineering rigged it up. It's mostly bug zappers and those plasma balls you get at novelty stores, but scaled up and powered by." Chen paused, tapping her chin. "Actually, I'm not sure what it's powered by. Johnson just said not to worry about it." They entered the conference room to find several human officers engaged in what appeared to be a gravity-defying game involving a small ball and tiny paddles. The ball ricocheted off surfaces that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. "Oh good, you're playing ping-pong in the temporal distortion again," Chen sighed. Guys, we talked about this. The Paradox Resolution Department is tired of filing reports. The humans quickly assembled, their uniforms a mix of official military dress and what Threndel was disturbed to recognize as novelty t-shirts. One officer's jacket bore patches reading, "I brake for wormholes," and "My other ship violates causality." "So," Chen said, settling into her chair with a casual grace that belied the fact her ship could apparently ignore inertia. "Let's talk about establishing formal relations. Fair warning, though, our translator might glitch. We fixed it with rubber bands and positive thinking, so it occasionally speaks in haikus." Threndel's aide whispered frantically in her ear. "Ambassador, their entire station is held together by improvised solutions that shouldn't work. Their shields are powered by what appears to be static electricity and wishful thinking. Their artificial gravity is just magnets. We should leave immediately." But Threndel was transfixed by something far more terrifying than the humans' impossible technology. It was Captain Chen's expression, the look of someone who genuinely didn't understand why any of this was unusual. The humans weren't trying to break physics. They simply didn't notice they were doing it. "Captain Chen," Threndel said carefully, "your species seems to have developed technology that contradicts our understanding of universal laws." Chen laughed, a sound that somehow made the station's lights flicker. "Oh, you mean the weird stuff? Yeah, we get that a lot. Truth is, we just fiddle with things until they work. Like this." She pulled out a device covered in duct tape and blinking LEDs. Universal Translator. It's 3 smartphones zip-tied together running Google Translate in parallel. Works in subspace somehow. We don't question it. As the formal negotiations began, Threndel realized with mounting horror that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their impossible ships or reality-breaking technology. It was their complete, unshakable belief that if something needed to work, they'd figure it out. Laws of physics be damned. The universe, it seemed, had simply given up arguing with them. Dr. Krelnak had spent 700 years studying xenotechnology. He'd reverse-engineered Vorthan quantum drives, decoded Centauri probability engines, and once solved a precursor puzzle box that had stumped scholars for millennia. Nothing in his extensive career prepared him for the engine room of the UNS Horizon. "Welcome to the heart of the beast," Chief Engineer Martinez announced, spreading his arms wide. Behind him, a fusion reactor hummed next to what Krelnak's scanner identified as a 1950s-era microwave oven connected with jumper cables. "This baby can do 12 parsecs in." "Please don't say 12 parsecs," Krelnak interrupted, his feathers already beginning to molt. "That's a unit of distance, not time." Martinez grinned. "Not anymore, it isn't. We fixed that. Jenkins, show him the chronometer." A young ensign held up what appeared to be several wristwatches taped together, their faces showing different times. One was clearly running backwards. "We sensed these to the tachyon field," Jenkins explained. "Now parsecs measure both distance and time. Saves on paperwork." Krelnak felt his primary heart skip a beat. That's not how space-time works." "Sure it is." Martins patted a large cylindrical device that sparked occasionally. "This here's the Alcubierre-ish drive. We couldn't figure out the math for a real Alcubierre drive, so we just built something that looked right and kept tweaking until it worked. The mathematics alone would require." "Oh, we don't use much math." Martins pointed to the bulkhead where equations were scrawled in what appeared to be crayon. Half were crossed out, and one section simply read, "Here be dragons," with an arrow pointing to a complicated integral. "We go more by feel. Like cooking, you know. Little bit of this, little bit of that. Don't let it explode more than twice during testing." Krelnak's scanner screamed warnings as he examined the drive system. The containment field was generated by what looked like a home theater speaker system playing low-frequency bass. The cooling system involved desk fans and what his cultural database identified as a Slurpee machine. "How do you calculate your jump coordinates?" Krelnak asked weakly. Martins led him to the navigation console, where 3 different GPS units were duct-taped to a smartphone running what appeared to be a modified video game. We used this app Jenkins made. It's basically Angry Birds, but the birds are our ship and the pigs are where we want to go. Works 60% of the time, every time. That doesn't even make sense, mathematically. That's what the last inspector said. Martins pulled out a wrench and began hitting various components. This is percussive maintenance. Sometimes the quantum field gets stuck, and you gotta encourage it. Lang. Like Lang. That. To Krelnak's horror, the engine's pitch changed with each hit, somehow harmonizing better. His feathers were falling out in clumps now, creating small drifts on the deck plating. Now here's the really cool part. Martinez continued, oblivious to the alien's distress. The FTL drive. He gestured to a section labeled Do Not Tivo Uchich, seriously grigi in red paint. It's powered by a flux capacitor. Krelnak's scanner identified the device. LED strips arranged in a U shape, connected to the reactor by what appeared to be extension cords rated for household appliances. This is just lights. Decorative lights. You can't possibly achieve faster than light travel with. Watch this. Martinez flipped a switch labeled Engage, written on masking tape. The LED strips began pulsing, and reality hiccuped. The sensation was indescribable. Krelnak felt the universe briefly consider the situation, throw up its metaphorical hands, and decide to just go with it. The stars outside the viewport streaked past in ways that violated causality, relativity, and common sense. How? Krelnak whispered, molting his last tail feather. Secret ingredient. Martins winked, pulling out a flask and pouring something into a funnel connected to the reactor. 2 parts deuterium, 1 part tritium, and a splash of tequila. The tequila's important, makes the plasma more relaxed about physics. The ship's cat, because of course they had a ship's cat, wandered through, somehow walking on the ceiling. It paused to bat at some exposed wiring, causing sparks that Martinez ignored. Your containment protocols, Krelnak managed, watching the cat's tail brush dangerously close to the antimatter injector. Surely you must. Oh, that's just Mr. Schrödinger. He's fine. Quantum cats are like that. He's simultaneously in and out of danger. We stopped worrying about it after he survived walking through the reactor core last month. A loud bang echoed through the compartment. Martins didn't even look up. That's normal. The starboard motivator likes to complain. I'll hit it with the wrench later. The starboard motivator. Yeah, it motivates the particles to go faster. We're not sure how, but if we don't call it that, it stops working. Ships are temperamental, you know. Krelnak's scanner finally gave up and displayed an error message. PHYSICS EXEHA is sto PPDWRKing. Would you like keep to be CNDAREPORT? Want to see the weapon systems? Martins offered cheerfully. We just installed a new railgun. It's basically a pipe with magnets, but we figured out if you play death metal through the targeting system, accuracy goes up 30%. It was at this moment that Krelnak achieved something no member of his species had done in recorded history. He fainted from sheer cognitive dissonance. As consciousness fled, his last coherent thought was a prayer to whatever cosmic entities might be listening. Don't let the humans discover they're impossible. The universe might not survive their confidence. The Galactic Academy of Sciences Grand Auditorium had hosted lectures on universe-shaping discoveries, the first mapping of subspace, the proof of parallel dimensions, the mathematics of consciousness itself. It had never, in its 40,000-year history, caught fire during a presentation. Sorry about that. Dr. James Robinson cheerfully extinguished his burning holographic display with what appeared to be beer from a can labeled Schrödinger's brew. It's simultaneously great and terrible. The quantum equations get a bit feisty when you draw them wrong. Where were we? Ah yes, E equals me2. The audience of 8,000 scientists from across the galaxy sat in various states of distress. The Vorthan delegation had their crystalline forms locked in emergency stability mode. 3 Centauri professors were breathing into paper bags, which was concerning since they didn't require oxygen. Now, Einstein had the right idea. Robinson continued, wiping beer foam off the equation board, but he was too rigid about it. See, E equals mc2 is more like E equals mc2-ish. Sometimes it's mc3 if you're feeling spicy. Tuesday it was mc1*7 for some reason. We don't question Tuesday. High physicist Zix Theta of the Quantum Collective raised a trembling tentacle. Dr. Robinson, you cannot simply change fundamental constants based on the day of the week. Sure you can. Watch. Robinson pulled out what looked like 2 shoelaces. This is quantum entanglement. He tied them together in a simple knot. Now these particles are connected across any distance instantaneously. That's just string, screamed a Korthak scientist, his energy form flickering through the panic spectrum. Is it though? Robinson held up the shoelaces. At one end, impossible to explain, a phone began ringing. He answered it with the string. Hello? Oh, hi, Mom. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a lecture. The one about breaking physics. No, they don't believe me either. The impossible phone call continued as Robinson casually violated everything the assembled scientists held sacred. Several emergency medical teams were called for acute existential crisis. Now let me show you our bootstrap paradox engine. Robinson wheeled out a device that looked like a disco ball covered in USB ports. This baby lets us violate causality on demand. Patent pending. You cannot patent a paradox, objected Dr. Velnera, the galaxy's leading temporal theorist. Already did. Last Thursday. Which technically hasn't happened yet, but will have it happened yesterday tomorrow. Robinson flipped a switch. The disco ball spun, reality warped, and suddenly there were 2 Dr. Robinsons on stage. Hey, Jim, said the second Robinson. Hey, Jim, replied the first. They high-fived, creating a sound that somehow echoed before it occurred. The Centauri's leading physicist, Dr. Quintar, stood up, his professional composure cracking. This is impossible. You're using temporal recursion, Toe. Nah, it's simpler than that, both Robinsons said in unison. We just convinced time it owed us a favor. Time's pretty chill if you buy it a drink first. The future Robinson pulled out a marker. Now, who wants to see the equation for our warp drive? Please, no, whimpered someone in the audience. Too late. Robinson began writing. Equals 8, but sideways. He added helpful annotations. Carry the fish, divide by 0, carefully, and imagine purple, but louder. No any of that, me Ian's anxiety thing. The usually composed Dr. Velnera was now standing on her chair, professional dignity abandoned. Exactly. Both Robinsons beamed. That's the secret. The universe runs on meaning. If you mean it hard enough, physics gives up and lets you do whatever. Observe. Robinson, the original one, they thought, pulled out a device labeled Probability Manipulator. It was clearly a magic 8-ball with wires attached. Will this work? He shook it. The answer came up. Reply hazy. Try again. See, quantum uncertainty at work. He shook it again. Signs point to yes. Immediately, the device began humming with impossible energy. Robinson casually used it to levitate his beer can, turn it into a flower, then back into beer, but now quantum entangled with every beer in the galaxy. The key insight, Robinson explained as chaos mounted, is that physics is more like guidelines than actual rules. Like a speed limit sign. Sure, it says 55, but everyone knows that means 75. Except in school zones, where it means floor it before the cops see you. The Academy's director, ancient beyond measure and wise beyond comprehension, finally spoke. Dr. Robinson, are you suggesting that human technology works because you Ignore physics until it stops applying to you. Not ignore, Robinson corrected, as his temporal duplicate began juggling equations that shouldn't exist. We acknowledge physics, buy it a drink, listen to its problems, and then while it's distracted, we do whatever we want. It's called the Hold My Beer principle. Published it last week, or next week. Temporal mechanics is fuzzy after a few beers. At this point, the Vorthan delegation collectively shattered from stress, their crystalline forms tinkling across the floor. The medical teams gave up and started drinking Robinson's quantum-entangled beer, which somehow made the situation both better and worse. Any questions? Both Robinsons asked cheerfully. The auditorium erupted. Half the scientists were crying, others were praying to deities they'd stopped believing in eons ago, and one group had started a support circle for post-human physics disorder. Dr. Quintar raised a shaking appendage. Just one. How do we make it stop? Stop. Robinson looked genuinely puzzled. Why would you want to stop? We haven't even gotten to the part where we explain how we power FTL drives with memes yet. Next slide, please. As the presentation continued with topics like duct tape, the fifth fundamental force, and why percussive maintenance is valid quantum mechanics, the galaxy's greatest minds learned a terrible truth. Humans hadn't mastered physics. They'd simply annoyed it into submission. And physics, apparently, had given up fighting back. Admiral Vex Thrall had commanded the Galactic fleet through 7 interstellar conflicts and repelled the quantum devourers from Galaxy X7. He'd faced impossible odds, survived certain doom, and once defeated an enemy armada with nothing but a mining vessel and a clever application of gravity. He now watched, mandibles clicking in distress, as the human ship UNS Defiant entered the combat exercise zone. Sideways. Tactical analysis, he demanded, 4 of his 7 eyes twitching. The Defiant is running with minimal shielding, reported his second, and appears to be. Admiral, they appear to be eating lunch. The magnified view confirmed it. On the bridge of humanity's supposedly elite combat vessel, Captain Rodriguez and his command crew were casually consuming sandwiches and what Tactical identified as sriracha-flavored potato chips, while maneuvering into a combat zone. Greetings, Admiral. Rodriguez's voice came through the comms, accompanied by the sound of crunching. Ready when you are. Fair warning, though. We just installed a new targeting system. It's basically a Nintendo Wii controller duct-taped to a graphing calculator. 60% chance it works. 40% chance it makes everything taste like blueberries. Vex Thrall's exoskeleton creaked with stress. Begin the exercise. Standard combat pattern Theta 7. His fleet of 30 vessels, the pinnacle of galactic engineering, moved with precision into a hunting formation designed to trap and disable enemy ships through superior positioning and coordinated fire. 5,000 years of tactical evolution, distilled into perfect martial geometry. The Defiant responded by doing what Tactical identified as a donut in open space. What are they doing? Vex Thrall whispered. Sir, they appear to be drifting. Like in those Earth entertainment vids about ground vehicles. His tactical officer's compound eyes dilated with confusion. The maneuver serves no combat purpose. Yeehaw! Rodriguez's voice echoed across the command channel. Always wanted to do that. Now, let's get serious. The human ship abruptly stopped spinning and accelerated directly toward the center of the formation at speeds that should have turned the crew into organic paste against the bulkheads. The Defiant's movements defied prediction algorithms. It performed turns that violated conservation of momentum, accelerations that ignored inertia, and at one point appeared to briefly travel backward in time to avoid a targeting lock. Inside the human vessel, crew members were playing ping-pong in artificial gravity that shouldn't exist. The ball's trajectory occasionally phased through solid objects, which the humans seemed to consider normal. Target locked, announced the fleet's gunner, firing simulated plasma barrage. The energy bursts, rendered harmless for the exercise but still visible, streaked toward the human ship. The Defiant responded by spinning on its axis like a top. Somehow, this caused the plasma to ricochet away. "How?" screamed Vex Thrall, his ceremonial captain's hat vibrating off his head. According to Defiant's comms, sir, his communications officer reported with disbelief. Captain Rodriguez says, and I quote, "If you spin fast enough, the laws of physics get dizzy and forget what they were doing. It makes no sense, but it appears to be working." The exercise continued as the Defiant performed maneuvers that existing mathematics couldn't model. At one point, it appeared to split into 3 copies, each attacking different vessels before recombining. "That's the Schrödinger maneuver," Rodriguez explained casually over the comms. "We exist in multiple states until you observe us. Then probability collapses. Basic quantum stuff. We learned it from our ship's cat." After 30 minutes of impossible tactics, the Defiant somehow ended up behind Vex Thrall's flagship, in its blind spot. A position that required traveling through 4 dimensions to achieve. "Weapons systems," Vex Thrall asked weakly. "They've locked onto us with what appears to be." The tactical officer paused, recalibrating his sensors. "Admiral, they're using rail guns. Literally just reinforced pipes launching ball bearings using electromagnetic acceleration. The projectiles are somehow achieving relativistic velocities." The simulated firing sequence completed. Had this been actual combat, Vex Thrall's flagship would have been reduced to component atoms by simple steel balls, accelerated to percentages of light speed. "How do they generate the energy required?" Vex Thrall asked. "They're playing music through the power conduits, something called death metal. It appears to violate the conservation of energy. The louder the music, the more energy they generate." The exercise concluded with the human ship performing a celebratory barrel roll. On screen, its crew was visible through the viewports, some making rude gestures that the cultural database identified as the finger and the moon. "Good game, guys." Rodriguez's voice came through, cheerful as ever. "Your shield's overheated on the port side. By the way, we can buff that out for you. Got this stuff called Bondo that'll fix anything." As the ships reconvened for the post-exercise briefing, Vex Thrall noticed something hanging from the Defiant's rear compartment. "What is that device?" His science officer adjusted the sensors. "It appears to be a plunger. A simple suction device humans use for waste disposal maintenance. What possible combat application could it serve?" At that moment, Rodriguez's voice came through again. "Oh, don't mind the plunger. That's our last resort weapon. Never had to use it yet, thankfully. The test models destroyed 3 uninhabited moons." Vex Thrall stared at the simple rubber and wood implement dangling from humanity's most advanced warship and made an immediate decision. Abort the joint exercises. Signal the fleet. Return to headquarters at once. He lowered his voice to a whisper. "And pray the humans never discover what they truly are. Because if they realize the universe bends to their will simply because they don't know it shouldn't, no power in existence could stop them." As the alien fleet retreated at maximum speed, behind them, the Defiant performed one final maneuver, a perfect figure-8 that briefly turned the local space-time into a pretzel, accompanied by the distant sound of electric guitars and whooping laughter. The Grand Symposium Chamber of the Galactic Council hadn't been used in its full capacity for a millennium. Today, it was standing room only, with representatives from 7,000 civilizations crowded into the vast amphitheater. The chamber hummed with the tension of countless beings who had collectively discovered that reality itself had a loophole. High Chancellor Kexforan, ancient, wise, and visibly twitching, activated the ceremonial orb of convocation. "We gather today for the most significant revelation since the discovery of faster-than-light travel. Dr. Wong of Earth has agreed to explain how human technology functions. The fate of our understanding of the cosmos hangs in the balance." Earth's science director, Dr. Emily Wong, approached the central platform. She was a small human with rectangular glasses and a t-shirt reading, "Schrodinger's cat is missing." She carried nothing but a coffee mug bearing the equation E equals IDK2. "Thanks, everyone," she began, taking a casual sip from her mug. "So you all want to know how our tech works. The truth is simple." She paused, looking around at the assembled greatest minds in the galaxy. "We don't actually know how any of this works." The silence that followed was so profound that several photosensitive species believed the lights had failed. "You don't know?" High Chancellor Kexforan's voice cracked with disbelief. "Nope." Dr. Wong popped the P sound with unsettling cheerfulness. "We just kept trying stuff until it didn't explode. Sometimes it did explode, but in a useful way, so we kept that part." She pulled out what appeared to be a standard tablet computer and projected a series of images showing Earth's technological evolution. "See this? First human aircraft. Basically canvas and sticks. The Wright brothers had no idea if it would fly. They just thought it should. 66 years later, we were on the moon. The images advanced to show plans for the first FTL drive. Half the schematics were labeled with sticky notes bearing question marks and phrases like "probably important" and "don't touch while running." Our first faster-than-light drive was discovered by accident, Dr. Wong continued. Dr. Kinsey spilled coffee on a particle accelerator during a lightning storm. The resulting field effects caused her ham sandwich to arrive in the break room before she'd made it. We figured it was worth exploring. A Zentari physicist near the front physically recoiled. "You discovered trans-dimensional folding because of a sandwich." "Pretty much. We replicated the experiment, but used more power and better coffee. 3 graduate students, 2 explosions, and 1 inexplicable temporal loop later, we had a working prototype. We're still not entirely sure how it functions on a quantum level, but it gets us from point A to point B without turning us inside out. So," she shrugged, "good enough." The chamber erupted in protests, questions, and what sounded like several religious conversions. Dr. Wong took another sip of coffee and waited for the noise to subside. "Look, here's the thing. You all develop technology by understanding fundamental principles, then building within established parameters. We develop technology by seeing what happens when you hook a microwave to a car battery. Different approaches, both valid. High physicist Zixthida vibrated with distress. But the computational models, the theoretical underpinnings, the mathematical proofs. Oh, we do those after." Dr. Wong waved dismissively. "Build first, explain later, sometimes much later. We still don't fully understand how aspirin works, but we've been using it for centuries." She pulled up another slide showing the progression of human FTL technology. The first prototype looked like scrap metal welded together by a drunk octopus. Each subsequent version became sleeker, though strangely never more comprehensible. "Our approach is simple. Try something, measure the results, improve the design. The understanding is optional." Our first warp drive had a 50% chance of working and a 30% chance of creating a small black hole. The test pilot just really wanted to go to Alpha Centauri for lunch. A Corthax representative's energy form flickered in agitation. "Do you mean to tell us that human technology, which violates our most sacred principles of physics, works because you—" He struggled to find the words. "Because you annoy reality into submission through persistent stupidity." Dr. Wong considered this for a moment. "Well, I wouldn't have phrased it exactly that way, but yeah, pretty much. We don't know enough to know what's impossible, so we try it anyway. The universe seems to get confused and just goes with it." She advanced to the final slide, which showed a mathematical model of human technological development versus the rest of the galaxy. The alien civilization's progress followed a logarithmic curve of steady advancement based on theoretical understanding. The human line zigzagged wildly, sometimes going backward, sometimes shooting vertically upward with no clear pattern. "See this spike in 2088? That's when we decided to see what happens if you quantum entangle a rubber chicken with a superconductor. Turns out, it creates a field effect that negates inertia. No one knows why. The physicist who discovered it wrote his entire paper in limerick form because he thought it was hilarious. Dr. Wong set down her coffee mug and looked out at the stunned assembly. The secret to human engineering isn't genius or technology. It's that we're too stubborn to accept failure and too curious to not press buttons that say, "Do not press." We built an intergalactic civilization with duct tape and WD-40 because no one told us it was impossible. She paused. Or rather, they did tell us, and we didn't listen. As the implications settled over the room, something shifted in the collective understanding of the galaxy. Humans hadn't mastered physics. They'd ignored it so consistently that physics had given up and started conforming to human expectations instead of the other way around. "Any questions?" Dr. Wong asked brightly. A tentative appendage raised from the back of the room. "What's next for human technology?" Dr. Wong grinned, an expression that somehow made stars in nearby systems flicker nervously. "Well, we've been wondering what happens if you play a Taylor Swift song backward through a quantum computer while making toast. Initial tests suggest it might let us talk to parallel universes, or it might just make really good toast. Either way, progress." The galactic representatives exchanged horrified glances. Humanity wasn't going to destroy the universe through malice or war. They were going to accidentally unravel reality itself while trying to make better breakfast foods. And the worst part, it would probably work.